Quote, "You're awake right now, you're not dead, and you haven't gone to hell," unquote, said Rachel Maddow, former host on CNN following the 2016 election. Ladies and gentlemen, people are angry about politics. Donald Trump had similar words following the 2020 election. Quote, "You're not going to have a country anymore," unquote. Late night host Jimmy Kimmel cried on stage following the 2024 election. Quote, "It was a terrible night for women and children, for poor people, for the middle class, for democracy and decency," unquote. Here, Donald Trump, Jimmy Kimmel, and Rachel Maddow made sensational claims. But they didn't make these claims to solve a problem. Instead, they wanted drama, and they achieved it by displaying shock, anger to the cameras. This is called false outrage. Even though false outrage is designed for the cameras, it influences others. False outrage actually doesn't influence them, though. It infects them. False outrage is a disease. To cure this disease, we must decide that anger is not the solution to complex problems. So today, we'll start by diagnosing our culture with this disease. Then we'll move on to the symptoms of this disease. And finally, we'll conclude with the cure. If false outrage could walk into a doctor's office, if our culture could walk into a doctor's office, it would come back with a severe diagnosis of false outrage. So, what's the difference between real and false outrage? True outrage only wants what is right. It seeks truth or justice. False outrage wants to be seen. In George Orwell's 1984 dystopian novel 1984, the communist regime mandates a daily practice known as the 2 minutes of hate. Every day, the citizens of this communist empire gather together in front of their TVs. In pure outrage, they scream as images of their capitalist enemies are shown on the screen. When the 2 minutes end, they feel that they have accomplished something. This is false outrage in its purest form. False outrage is all over the internet today. The online world has as much self-control as a nuclear explosion. A study in Science magazine by Killian McLaughlin and her colleagues found that, quote, "Social media posts that express outrage are liked and shared more, training users to express more outrage, and ranking algorithms to amplify it," unquote. For example, Benny Johnson, a conservative podcaster, uses false outrage to attract views. One of his recent videos featured an image of California Governor Gavin Newsom angrily holding a burning dollar bill with a burning Hollywood sign behind him. In another, Donald Trump in Eskimo clothing screams along with Vladimir Putin. This doesn't make any sense. But Benny Johnson has 15 million followers. Unfortunately, false outrage doesn't stay online. Humans copy the behaviors and worldviews of people around them. And because online outrage consumes so much of our time, that changes actions in the real world. The Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression points this out in a report. Quote, "This year, more than 2/3 of students, 68%, said that shouting down a speaker is at least rarely acceptable," unquote. The report noted that these numbers are now at record highs. More students than ever before are willing to use outrage to silence conversation. I've experienced outrage in public. 3 years ago, my grandparents and I went to the March for Life in Washington, D.C. After the march ended, I kept my poster as a souvenir. A woman saw me carrying my poster and ran over to me, screaming, telling me that I never should have participated in the march. She believed that yelling at 14-year-olds about politics makes you a good person. So now that we've diagnosed our culture with false outrage, let's talk about the symptoms. What are the symptoms? Well, false outrage causes us to avoid calm discussions. and it causes us to believe that our outrage makes us good people. As writers for The Minimalist, a blog that encourages simple living, put it, quote, "We've all gotten offended without asking ourselves why, and then used our fake outrage to cast judgment upon others. And it helps us feel better. And pretending to be offended is much easier than attempting to breach the walls of introspection." Unquote. When we pretend to be outraged, we don't have to reason through our beliefs. Piers Morgan, the British host of a political show with 4 million followers, uses false outrage to avoid hard questions. In 2017, when a guest on his show questioned his stance on gun policy, Piers responded, "How dare you?" "Well, you can keep saying that, Piers, but my point still stands," said the guest he was hosting. Piers did not address the point. "Again, how dare you?" he repeated. Nothing Piers Morgan said advanced the debate. Instead, he used outrage to shield himself, because outrage is easier than analysis. False outrage is like hiding under the bed in hide and seek. It'll hide you well, but it's a terrible place to be. Performative anger is a terrible place to be. I've seen this in my own life. I was sitting in on a committee hearing at the US House of Representatives, just observing, as several experts explained developments in nuclear technology. Most of the congresspeople did what you'd expect, politely asked questions. But one congresswoman had a different idea. She was angry about nuclear contamination in her district. Quote, "Let me finish my sentence," she demanded, saying 10 more sentences as the committee chairman banged on the table with his gavel, telling her she was out of order. Eventually, she stormed out of the room. Her anger caused her to lose an opportunity to learn about nuclear power. She wasn't angry for no reason. She believed that she was doing a good work by standing against nuclear power. So that's the other symptom. Humans express outrage because it makes them feel like good people. Psychologist Joshua Grubbs found that public figures express outrage at their enemies so that they receive applause from their audience. When they condemn some far-off event, they receive praise for their bravery and courage. Stephen Colbert, another late-night host, has done exactly that. After Donald Trump held a rally at Madison Square Garden in New York City, Colbert said, quote, "Oh, I'm sure it's just a coincidence, but in 1939 they held a pro-Nazi rally there," unquote. With this remark, Colbert insinuated that Trump is Nazi adjacent, having created a straw man out of Trump, an evil Nazi. Stephen Colbert spared no words, swearing at Trump live on national television. His statements make sense, because his worldview treats outrage as virtuous. Author Glenn Beck describes the human effect of false outrage in his book, Addicted to Outrage. Quote, "It deprives human beings of genuine humanity, replacing it instead with an outwardly facing caricature of a virtuous human being wrapped around a rotting corpse." Unquote. This worldview has morality backwards. False outrage replaces good deeds with outraged words. The culture celebrates false outrage. Politicians and media figures promote it. They don't deserve all the blame, but their worldview does deserve the blame. Their worldview is false. False outrage is not a virtue, and moral grandstanding is not a good deed. This moral confusion has eroded the genuine compassion of millions and transformed it into outrage. But I wouldn't have accomplished anything if I told you to be outraged at false outrage. That would be a terrible cure to this sickness. I used to be addicted to outrage. I was angry at every news story. I debated every little detail. Thankfully, I was convicted after reading Glenn Beck's book, Addicted to Outrage, and I realized what I had been doing. Colossians 3 verse 2 says, quote, "Set your minds on things above, not on earthly things." I made a pledge to stop being outraged at earthly things. Imagine if everyone stopped practicing false outrage. If everyone stopped being so angry. If we calmly discussed difficult questions and stopped believing our outrage makes us good people. That's the world I want to live in. And that world is only possible if you help build it. To take a quote from Darth Vader in Star Wars completely out of context, quote, "With our combined strength, we can end this destructive conflict and bring order to the galaxy," unquote. You won't improve the world by being angry. You'll make the world a better place if you have calm discussions, actually do good deeds, and focus on something higher than the next controversy. False outrage isn't worth it. Life is too beautiful to waste being angry.